final answer on Call of Duty skill-based matchmaking at this point.
Claims that skill-based matchmaking was all Infinity Ward's idea, and they pushed Activision to initially get it implemented. So this comes off the back of Charlie Intel quote tweeting the blog that said, yes, we're going to get open matchmaking at launch for BO7. Courage then said, shout out to all the hardworking devs who've always tried their hardest to make COD great. Activision execs who made decisions around skill-based matchmaking, not investing into anti-cheat and disbanding lobbies are the ones to blame. Today, developers and players won. And then Brian Bright chimes in and he's like, lol, no, you're talking out your ass. The devs at Infinity Ward made this decision. He personally was pushing back at the time, but unfortunately he wasn't working on MP. I specifically remember arguing this during Infinite Warfare development. I likened the lobby to the corner bar. We hang, meet people, and forge some friendships, a la Modern Warfare 1 or Modern Warfare 2, or in my case, Quake 3 Arena. The push for faster matchmaking and better team balancing was their focus though. So Brian was basically saying, you should be able to just go to these places and have a good time.
So yeah, it does seem that skill-based matchmaking is something that developers intended to basically maximize profit and make as much money as possible. Why? Because they put hundreds of millions probably to skill-based matchmaking, or at least millions of dollars to develop some sort of an algorithm that would make people play more. And while it does work for the 80% or 70% of population, because I do see skill-based matchmaking is working if you're like a casual player, but as soon as you become at least good at the game, like playing at least 1 year, then it becomes almost unplayable in my point of view. And this is what we're seeing with Call of Duty right now, is a lot of people just don't want to have skill-based matchmaking, especially people who are really good at the game. They want to dominate in the lobbies or not dominate the lobbies, but this is made for the general audience, which means that people would play for longer, which means they would enjoy the game and play with, buy skins and do all that because of SBMM. That was the whole point of it, and it seems like these developers are now complaining like, wow, the big developers, the video game developers are pushing for this onto the big company. So it was the developers themselves who wanted to add this, thinking the game would be more fun that way. And then there's another developer that stepped in and said, no, that's obviously not true. What happened here is this, we didn't ask for this, and nobody wanted to have it at the development team, like the Call of Duty development team. So there's two sides to the story there. There's a leak calling that the developers of the original Call of Duty Infinite Warfare game actually pushed this the first time it came around because the big companies want to maximize their revenue. And the other developer who has worked on this has said, no, we don't want to add to that. That's going to ruin the entire experience of games. And ever since SBMM was added, a lot of these Call of Duty games, yes, they did maximize their sales, but you can actually see more and more people got frustrated. So yes, in the long term, it did make them a lot of money. There's no denying that, but it did ruin the relationship they had with customers and, people buying skin. It does seem now that SBMM has become so bad that it started to affect revenue at this point. Like, people do not just want to boycott it at this point, as like millions of people, like from tens of thousands of people complaining about SBMM. It's probably in millions that, are vocal about it, that entire content creators are making videos on it.
2019, where they talk about how they added stronger skill-based matchmaking, and this is the clip, and I think this is worth taking a little look at here. I'm not sure who the original creator is of this clip, but I'm guessing it's this Poyo guy. But yeah, this is what the interview clip looks like.
Our maps are a little bit more porous, and we want those players to have a safe place to take their time, to learn how to turn and move and then shoot, put those pieces together, and then they see someone and be like, oh, okay, now I can do this.
What?
But that approach that you're describing there isn't going to come at the expense of the hardcore players, right?
That's not the plan, right? But we want to make sure that we don't want someone who's, how to say this, lower skill to have a bad experience. We want someone who's higher skill to have a bad experience.
Now, if you ask me, that interview clip doesn't look very good. It's not a great look.
The reason here why people are mad about SBMM is because it ruined the experience for everyone. For pro players or really good players, or at least above average players like me, it made the game unbearable. So for example, I literally had to lose a few matches because I kept ranking up with players I should never play against. I only play maybe once a month, and suddenly I'm getting matched with people who play every day and they're little sweats and even have skins in multiplayer lobbies to help them play better. It is insane for me. it should not have been. Warzone feels fair enough, but also there's a lot of players there where, you know, you're literally getting matched with more skilled players and they end up winning, or against cheaters. And those, you know, worse players, well, they can get really unlucky and get matched in lobbies that they shouldn't be matched with, because there's not really super bad players like super casual. Instead, they get matched in normal lobbies and don't have any fun playing. So who does it really help here? Nobody at this point. But yeah, from this clip, they said and admitted on purpose, allegedly, that the maps they added were worse so players could have fun, and literally the new players, which ended up not even liking the game at that point in 2019, unfortunately. A lot of players have very mixed opinions, especially with Modern Warfare 3, and we're talking about Black Ops 7 here, which had a lot of issues overall at this point with lack of content. Now, the maps are simply amazing, and they're finally making changes because it's affecting their sales.
Yeah, it's sort of saying the quiet part out loud in a big way. Now, next, they made the Black Ops 6 campaign, multiplayer, and zombies playable for free during the Battlefield 6 launch week, which I think was Call of Duty trying to take shots at Battlefield and undermine their release.
So yeah, even making Call of Duty Black Ops 6 for free, which you could play the single-player campaign, it is unfortunate because their free weekend did not help that much. You know, we got the game for free, you could finish the campaign and people would just stop playing. It's not like suddenly this changed all the hype from Battlefield 6 to Black Ops 7. And I find this a very big problem, and I feel like they, you know, we're finally realizing, okay, maybe this game is going to be bigger than we thought, and maybe their Battle Royale is going to be played by more people, and there's going to be competition to Warzone. They literally got caught off guard at this point.
Factors, right? And the exact same thing applies here. So I think that this is a massive win. It's also going to put pressure on the Warzone side of things too once the Battlefield Battle Royale comes out. Like there's a lot of benefits that are going to all come from just the viral success of this game, even though it isn't surpassing Call of Duty's numbers. It doesn't need to do that to still be a massive force for good in the industry.
So yeah, after 6 years, you know, all they need is Battlefield 6 to finally see, okay, we have competition. We can actually lose a large player base at this point because 26% of players playing Battlefield 6 beta have actually not touched Call of Duty that much. So that's why their numbers were down on the beta event. It wasn't that big of a deal. When you see something like Arc Raiders literally getting more players than Call of Duty, or at least close to it, it definitely shows some red flags on Steam at that point. And I really do feel that Call of Duty right now is a certain scenario where it's taking everything for granted, and now they'll have to double up. Literally for Warzone, about a month ago, they revealed that they're not going to do any sort of updates until next year, which I love extraction shooters. I think it's a great idea. But again, taking a full year for this when you have billions and billions of dollars potentially to reinvest into the game is a big mistake in my opinion. They could have just launched so much stuff for COD and not just take Call of Duty and Warzone player base for granted. And that's why a lot of people have switched to Battlefield 6. Now, Battlefield 6, it doesn't matter if it survives or not. It more matters what Call of Duty is going to do with SBMM going forward.